So welcome to another Wargame review from thePlayersaid.com. My name's Alexander.
And I'm Grant.
And today we're taking a look at a brand new game called Freeman's Farm 1777. This is just published by Worthington, and it is fresh off the printers. This was a Kickstarter from a number of months back, and it's just being delivered to their backers now. So, 1777, it's an American Revolutionary War game. This is a two-player game. There is a solitaire version of it. It was primarily and initially designed as a two-player game. It is a very light, very accessible, and a very, very nice-looking game as well.
Yeah.
So this is a game you can play with a lot of different people. It covers one specific battle, and it's one specific part of that battle, I suppose.
Yeah.
Because it was Saratoga, and then this is one of those days, and it's just... It's basically, you've got two formations. You've got the Americans, and you've got the British with some German allies, just some battle lines, and you're fighting for control of Freeman's Farm, only because that gives you a good tactical advantage. The point of this game is just to eliminate some opposing formations, basically. So it's a really nice, very simple, very easy to learn game.
Yeah.
Now, this is fresh off the presses. But I had already heard a couple of people online say, it's so great, it's so good, this is the real deal. So I had some good expectations coming into this. And production-wise, it's a beautiful game. Worthington basically exclusively makes nice-looking games.
Oh,
if
yeah.
I've played any other games where I was like, yikes.
Yeah.
But this is a very, very nice game to play with. Looking at the nice pictures, the artwork that they've got. It's got nice tactile blocks. Not like blocks like a block war game, but like wooden pieces.
That represent formations.
Yeah. And the gameplay is very easy to learn. I mean, it is 4 or 5 pages of actual rules, and you just play it. It plays in about 45 minutes-ish.
Yeah, it says like Revolution under an hour, but I think once you get the rules down, I think 40 to 45 minutes is... Because there's really 15 turns.
Yeah, so the most it could be
is 15. I mean, if you get lucky and eliminate some formations with some good card play and some good rolls, which you didn't have, you know, it could be over in 7, 8, 10 turns.
It could end if one person rolls very well, the other very poorly. It could end much sooner than that, but it will not be longer than an hour, ever.
No.
And probably, you'd be hard-pressed to have it longer than 45
If it's longer than an hour, you're literally reading every card.
You're doing it wrong.
And you just don't understand the rules or aren't familiar with it. Once you get it flows pretty quickly.
It's not going to be this hugely complex long
No.
game. There's some kind of thinky moments of like,
oh yeah,
ooh,
how should I use this?
How do I spend my momentum cubes? Do I buy this card? Do I save it for a reroll? But even the person with the biggest analysis paralysis, you're going to get through this game very quickly. Okay. So, all in all, it's very accessible, which is something I enjoy in a war game. And it plays quickly, and because it's simple, and it's not super heavy and crunchy and bloody, you can play this with a lot of different people.
Yes.
We've played a lot of war games in our time, a lot of heavy games, a lot of deep games, a lot of light games. This is on the lighter end of it.
Yes.
But I still enjoyed the tactical choices that we did have. But I know we could play it with our wives.
Yep.
Also still have a great time.
I think that's a common misconception about anything that's tagged as an introductory war game, that it's simple. It is simple to play, meaning...
Or simple to learn.
The rules aren't overly complex, 4 or 5 pages.
Yes.
You know, the systems are pretty easy to understand, but it comes down to how do you play it well. And I think for grognards, you're still going to enjoy this if you play this with your son or daughter or your spouse, because there's a lot of tactical choices, how to use cards, and it's fun, but it's not an overly complex game, and that's not a bad thing.
And it's not an overwhelming game.
No.
You have a hand of 3 cards. At most, you can activate 3 different formations on your turn.
Yeah.
Which one do I activate? This one, this one, or this one? Your formations have a formation card that says, this is what they can do. And you pick one of those things to do, and you do it. And that's why it's introductory to me, is because the presentation of the rules on those cards, on the tactics cards say very explicitly what you do. There's I don't have counters with a bunch of numbers on it. I have to reference a sheet or a big index.
You don't have terrain effects. You don't have those things are missing and not needed in this game.
Yeah. Oh, I'm activating Bremen formation. Great. I look at the Bremen card and it says, do this or this. Great.
Yeah.
You know, so that way it's very accessible to a lot of people because no one's getting overwhelmed playing this.
No.
Some things I enjoyed about this game.
Well, first off, I did want to talk about the comparison of this to 1759.
Okay.
Which we played a couple of months ago,
Yes.
right? Maybe in the midsummer. Similar looking boards, similar looking pieces.
Yes.
Actually, similar style of game because you're dealing with formations and really areas.
Yes.
Right? So, for instance, in this game, you don't move all over the board.
Yes.
Your formations can move one or two spaces, and they're intended to be in those spaces.
Yeah, they're either here or they're
here.
And you're moving them back and forth, whichever one you do.
So I really like that concept, and that's the way 1759, the Siege of Quebec, was.
Yes.
You had different areas, you had cards that you played, and it was like, activate the orchard. I'm trying to remember the names of the areas.
Yeah.
And you did some skirmishing in there. And you had some results, and you lost a piece, or I lost a piece, or...
And you know, these guys over here could only attack those guys.
Yeah, and it made sense spatially.
Yes.
And I think the comparison with this game and 1759 is it's that same spatial comparison. You're really focused on one or two positions that these guys were assigned to defend or attack from, and that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah, the board is static in the sense that I've got my pieces and they're in my little, Patterson space.
Yes.
Patterson's formation's not going to move across the board and do it.
He's not going to go and attack the Coulter farm. That's out of his realm.
The rules don't allow
Yeah,
it. You
he
sit
can't
on your
move.
bluff and you shoot down. Right?
He's going to do a couple of things. He's going to reinforce Glover, which is really cool because Glover's on his flank, his left flank. He's also going to be able to attack the Hessian mercenaries if they're up in level 3, I think, in the third area. Or he can activate the artillery, which can pretty much attack any of the British formations. But that's it. So he lives in this space.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of a cool concept because you've got to think spatially of what I'm trying to do, how I can do it, what generals I have to activate. And then there's a cost to those activations.
Yes.
And we can talk about that a little bit later, but comparing it to 1759, I got that same feeling, at least on its surface.
Yes, so...
It was a different style of game, but at least this is more of a war game. We talked about that too, but it felt similar.
And it looks similar.
Yes.
You'll see it when I show you. Immediately that other game comes to mind because like, similar pieces, similar
maps look similar,
Everything looks familiar.
Yeah.
The actual gameplay with the cards that you have and your formations and the tactics is different and quite different. But what it looks like on the board is very similar.
Right.
Even though there's some different nuance to how it all plays out.
But once again, it's that spatial concept.
Yeah, you don't have hexes you're moving through.
No.
You don't even really have area movement. Most of the guys are going to be on the board, and you'll take a loss.
Yeah.
You'll take a loss.
Yeah, and that's kind of the way 1759 was, although there was some more movement. You could move down to Quebec and siege Quebec, but most of the time you were doing stuff like this.
Yes.
I thought that was a pretty cool... I think it's a pretty neat thing. It's a different concept in war games. Yes. You're not going to go out in a sandbox and decide, I'm going to siege, Freeman's farm with this formation. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. The whole concept is set up. He's going to support this group, which is going to support your main group, poor, and that's what their purpose is. So you got to figure out how to play those guys in the context of a limited number of activations. You're drawing those randomly. You can't activate poor until you draw one of his. I think he had 4 cards.
And that's what I like about this game. It says on his formation card, this is how many activations
4 cards,
he's got.
Yeah.
And
so you got to plan. You got to plan for that. Think about that. And then you got to have some of your other pieces do something that matters. So you can't just willy-nilly throw these guys around. They've got to do things that actually make a difference. Yes. And I thought that was very well done on both sides.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I enjoyed that card play. Some people don't necessarily like card play in games.
I like card
because
play.
There's a lot of randomness to that, but you have to deal with what you've got. You got a small hand, you got 3 cards in your hand out of a deck of 15, I think it was, right?
Yes, and 15 activations, and you're getting 3.
Yes, and you have, so the British have 1, 2, 3, they have 4
leaders or...
I guess they have 5, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
They do have cards for Bremen, even though he's not an actual formation. So you got 5 formations, you'll have 3 cards. So at most, you have options of activating 3. Sometimes you've got 2 of the same card.
Yeah.
So you've got limited options. So you're going to make the best of what you've got still. But it's still very simple. And you're like, okay, I can't do my main assault on the farm, so what do? Do I use the Hessians to try and distract and do a feint, or do I have them flank the farm and attack from the side, because that's one of the few maneuvers you can do in this game, or do I just use the artillery and pound the reserves and try and whittle down those forces? Because as much as it's called Freeman's Farm, that's effectively a setting. The victory conditions for this game are break 3 enemy formations.
Or don't have your 3 enemy formations broken.
Yeah.
So the Americans are literally just trying not to have formations broken.
Yes.
You would think it was about holding Freeman's Farm, but it's not.
It only is in the sense that if you hold Freeman's Farm, your tactical position makes it easier for you to break other units.
Yeah, like for instance, I moved Poor into Freeman's Farm and I was able to really lambaste Hamilton, forcing you to actually dry up Bremen, and he was broken. And that was kind of interesting, that interplay. So yeah, it's about just trying to break.
Yeah, you just...
Which is simple.
These guys attack them, roll some dice, remove a thing, maybe lose a morale. That's the other neat aspect of this is, as the game progresses, whenever you activate a formation, you have to either lose dudes off the board, or
which is very costly.
Lose 1 morale, and then everyone starts with 10 morale.
Yeah.
And so usually you're losing that morale.
And you don't become negatively affected until it's under 6.
Yes, as soon as you hit 5 or fewer, you start making your morale checks, and your formation might break and leave the game. But it's neat because, if from turn 1 you start having diminishing morale.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it just it starts going down, a couple bad rolls, you might lose some more, and you're like, oh no.
Yeah.
It's a 15-turn game. It moves on very, very, very quickly. It's you're never going to sit there and have oh, I did really well. Even if you win the game, you're going to be down close to that morale threshold. Be like, oh no.
Yep.
So that keeps some good tension in the game.
Yes.
Even at the end as well.
Well, and I also I thought the combat system was very cool. You roll somewhere between 4 and 6 dice, I think was the most. And a lot of that is dependent on what areas you hold, what units you are attacking with, and what units you are attacking.
Yes.
Some of the units you may actually really want to eliminate, like the Hessians, but if you attack them with these guys, you might only roll 2 dice. So the chances of doing anything to them is very, very difficult, because in order to get a result, you have to roll doubles.
Yes.
Which was I thought, very unique. I thought it was very interesting, very challenging as well.
Yes.
Although I did very well and rolled a lot of doubles. But it was a really interesting economy trying, hey, I got 6 dice. I rolled. I'm going to pay 3 of my resource cubes, which were your momentum tokens.
Momentum cubes,
and I'm going to keep that 6, because guess what? A 6 eliminates an enemy unit.
If you have 2 of them.
If you have 2. So I'm going to take those 5 dice back that I just rolled by paying those 3 cubes. I'm going to re-roll, and surely I'm going to roll a 6. Well, more often than not, you don't. But when you do, man, hey, I got to eliminate a unit. Or I got a couple double, 2 6s and 2 4s, and all of a sudden I was removing one of your units and forcing you to drop your morale. So it was a really cool, I loved that combat mechanic. It felt pressure lucky.
A little bit, yeah.
It felt resource management. I had to
It's very expensive to
manage those resources, because I even had that card that made you spend 4 tokens
that was
rather than the normal 3. And I thought, oh, that's a really good one. And it paid off, I thought, for me.
Yeah, because if you spend all your money on re-rolls, or your momentum
you can't buy cards.
You can't buy these cool tactics cards, which are oh, do this cool thing, or you get this back, or oh, screw over your opponent. Which those are really fun too.
Oh, those are a blast. But the combat is very interesting. There also comes a point, almost like a tipping point, where I feel like as the Americans, who are really the defenders, I don't know that you want to be attacking so much. You really want to be reinforcing and maybe firing your artillery, because it's okay to lose those guys. But so that was an interesting element as too. With about 5 or 6 turns left, I didn't feel the need to attack because I was holding out.
If you're in a strong position, you're like, okay, we can hold back a little bit.
Because what happens when you roll?
if you're attacking and you roll snake eyes or you roll double twos, you lose a guy.
The
or
attacker.
You lose a morale.
Yeah.
When you're
How many times did that happen?
When you're rolling 5 or 6 dice,
Yeah,
you're like, oh, I rolled double 4s. You're going to lose a morale, and you're like, oh, I also rolled double 1s.
Yeah, so I lose a guy. Yeah,
not good.
So that I loved that. I don't know. It just felt like a pendulum. You know, ooh, I could really do well, then you do really bad, and then bring it back to the center, and then you do really well, and then the next turn it's really bad, and very well done. I thought that was interesting because it created tension. And it created a really tough decision. Do I spend my resources in cubes or in my soldiers? By discarding a soldier, you could get a reroll. And there were times you did like 2 and 3 a turn because you had to.
Yes.
You were trying desperately to make me break, and it just wasn't working.
Yeah, you got to use that kind of. Do I spend my momentum tokens, or I can sacrifice another morale for a reroll? And then all of a sudden you get attacked and lose more morale. And they are,
Well, and the other interesting choice, because you did it several times, you maybe rolled double 1s or double 2s, so you know you're going to lose a morale. If you accept those results, right, you're losing a morale. So you kind of asked yourself, if I'm going to lose a morale anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice a morale now to re-roll those dice. Oh crap, I just lost another morale.
Yeah, it's made it worse.
So just a fantastic resource management in relation to combat. And then we talked about those cards, those tactics cards, really cool.
Yeah, and it's funny, we went through the whole deck.
I don't think we got through the last 4.
No, but we used a significant amount of them, which I was surprised by.
Well, you end up discarding one if you don't buy one, but we were buying them almost every turn.
It was rare that we didn't.
Yeah.
But those, there's a whole bunch of them, and it's just like, you buy this card and it gives you like, some of them are like, +1 in combat.
And it's a one-time use thing, generally.
But some of them are like, make the opponent re-roll a dice. Or some of them...
Take away a die from your opponent.
Yeah. And then some of them get a bit more involved where, you can use your leader like one time in the game, and you can use it to either save one of your units and give them an extra kind of morale check if they fail.
That was Back in the Saddle, right? I think was...
Yeah. So
that was really cool.
You can kind of bring a general back that you've used. Very powerful. Or there was one that you played, which was, I think, the best one. It was just funny.
Rumors of the death of the commander.
Yeah, so like...
so dope.
And every one of your formations loses 1 morale.
Yeah, and that was... and I think when I played it, I was holding on to it to force you to...
Just make
to at least do a couple of rolls, and I think you rolled really well. But it still got you down to the point where...
Now I have to really think a lot harder about, like, do I...
Because if you attack, you're taking a morale, and all of a sudden, I'm at a 3.
I might not even get to make my attack, because I'm like, I broke.
Because the cool thing about the morale is you're rolling a 6-sider, and you have to roll higher
than what
your morale to not break. Or was it lower?
No, you had to roll higher.
It was higher.
So as it degrades, your chances of breaking increase.
So once it gets down to 4... Actually, 3, it's 50-50.
Yeah, not good.
So it's just an interesting... But those tactics cards, really, really cool. A lot of them, it's like, hold on to it until you need it. You can play it at any time. Some of the cards said, like, play it on your combat round, your opponent's combat round. I liked that part of the game, and we didn't get through all of them. But
a significant
a majority of them. So I really like that. And that resource management, both of those were very well done.
Yes. What I'll do is I'll show you the board and show you some of these cards and how it looks and how it plays, and then we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts. So here's a look at the map. As you can see, we talked about Siege of Quebec 1759. This has a similar feel to it in that you've got these spaces, you put your blocks on them. Nixon's guys won't move unless they're just moving some guys to reinforce Patterson if Patterson lose blocks. The only major movement is Hamilton moving into Freeman's farm, Paul counterattacking, and then you got the Germans who can either kind of go up here to counter artillery, or they can go and flank Freeman's farm. Fraser can go through Coulter farm, but he's got to get rid of these skirmishes, and he can move up here and start flanking the Americans. But really, that's the major movement here, as well as the British artillery trying to come up here. But that's it. Honestly, that's the movement. The majority of this game is, these guys are going to try and shoot them, so you roll some dice. I might lose a guy, they might lose a guy. This is about removing blocks, and you can see the British command formation cards here. You're basically trying to get these morale tracks from 10 down to 5. You start seeing the word test underneath these boxes. As soon as you start getting into these, you've got to roll morale checks to see if you break. If you ever get to 0, you're an auto break. You just, you're gone. You're routed. So the game plays with these deck of activation cards. So we have the British activation cards right here, and they look like this. So you have, it's just a name. So this is going to activate Hamilton formation. Hamilton's right here, and then Hamilton has his card right here. So you basically activate them. So I'm going to play this Hamilton card as the first card of the game. The first thing you do is you get 3 cubes, and these come from a pool of black momentum cubes just off board. You get 3 of those into your little pool of cubes. You can spend these for a reroll later, or you can spend them to buy one of these 3 tactics cards. So we've done that. So now we actually have to pay to activate them. Anytime you move, fight, or do any kind of activation, there's a toll on your troops. You can pay that by either removing guys, don't want to do that early game, or you move down 1 on the morale track. So early game you'll start diminishing your precious morale that you have. Now that they're activated, what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the different commands that we can do here. And so in Hamilton 1, this is Hamilton 1, we can attack Paul in Freeman's farm. So we could just attack Paul if we wanted to. Or if the mill is controlled by Americans, oops, my bad. The mill starts American controlled, so does Coulter's farm. If the mill is controlled by Americans and Freeman's farm is vacant, which this is the initial board state, that's always the case, and Freeman's farm is vacant, attack the mill for control. Any hit, change control of the marker, the little skirmish marker, and you move into Freeman's farm. Every opening move of this game is probably going to be this. It's probably going to be the same, and the game allows you to kind of set that up. You basically draw 6 cards from your starting deck, and you can keep 3 and put 3, shuffle them back into your deck. So you should always have a Hamilton card if you're the British, so you can do that opening move. So what do? Hamilton says he rolls 5 dice. So we pull out our dice, and we gotta roll 5 dice. Uh-oh, that's very, very bad. So, why is this bad? We can look at this little chart down here.
Because you rolled the dice.
Yeah, it's because it was me. So you get attack results on doubles, effectively. If you roll 2 6s, you remove an enemy defender. If you roll 2 5s, you reduce defender morale by 1. 2 4s, reduce defender morale by 1. If you roll 2 2s, you reduce attacker morale by 1. You hurt yourself on double 2s. And you remove one of your own attacking blocks on Snake Eyes. You don't want to do that. If you roll a 3, you get a momentum cube. So 3s are the only thing where if you get 1, you get a cube. It's not a total loss. So in this instance, well, this isn't great. What am I supposed to do? What you might do is you might say, I'm going to try and re-roll. So I'm going to spend 3 cubes, which I just earned, to re-roll. I'm going to keep my 6. I'm going to roll more, and that was not great. So in this particular instance, we don't score any hits. So what we're going to do is we are going to any hit. Yeah. We basically, Poor is going to lose a morale. So I don't have his card here. He's going to go down 1 on the morale track. If you can start scoring hits, what's going to happen is this cube's going to change as your little skirmishes take control. These guys move in, and they're in a much more advantageous tactical position. And that's the case because if you look at the side of Hamilton's card, it says +1 die if the mill is British controlled. Well, the mill is now British controlled. And Fraser, over here on the flank, +1 die if the mill is British controlled. Because now he's not worried about fire coming in from this direction as well. So making a push like this puts you in a better tactical position, but only so that you can get some better numbers to do attacks with. You don't get victory points for holding this, you get victory points for eliminating, breaking other people's units. This just helps facilitate that. That's all it does. You don't get a point for having Freeman's farm at the end of the game. You've got the Germans on the road. They might, kind of move up here to attack here, or they might move over here to flank. If Poor gets into the farm, they might come and attack on the flank as well. So that's really the options that you have as far as movement goes there. But once you've kind of done your action, if you had any of those momentum tokens left over, you could buy one of these at this point. We don't have any because we spent them all, and that's it. You draw another card, so you should always have 3 in your hand. So we drew a Fraser. So our hand is Fraser, Riedesel. So not great. It just limits our options. We can use him or him next turn, right? If I wanted to use Hamilton, I couldn't, quite simply. And then the American player goes. So the American player is going to, out of their hand of cards, they have Poor, Glover, and Patterson. Well, they're going to try and counterattack with Poor is what they're going to do. So what you'll take a look at is Poor's card. And it says, it's got kind of 3 different options there. So in Poor 1, move to Freeman's farm and attack Hamilton number 1. Well, he's in Poor 1, but he can't move in here because I'm in here. You can only have 1 formation in there at a time. If he's already in Freeman's farm and attack Hamilton number 1, or he can attack these guys if there's anyone here. Well, there's no one here, so I don't do it. In Poor 1, attack Hamilton, or British formation in Freeman's farm, or Fraser. He can attack Fraser at -2 dice, which is shooting a long way. So all he's going to do is do an attack against Hamilton in the farm. He's going to roll 5 dice, because it says 5 dice right here. +1 dice if the mill is American controlled. It is not, so we don't get that +1 dice. If he's in Freeman's farm, we may spend 3 momentum to score 1 automatic 6 in combat. Well, we don't have enough momentum for that, because Poor only had 1 cube, so he earned 1 cube. But we also aren't in Freeman's farm, so we're not going to worry about it. But he's going to roll 5 dice and just try and counterattack here. He's going to roll those dice, and this is basically nothing, which is not great. He doesn't have any momentum tokens to spend, so he can't spend 3 and reroll. What he might consider doing is spending 1 more of his morale. Now, he already spent 1 morale just to activate at all. So, starting... because you start at 10, he spent 1 to activate. If you spend another 1 to reroll, you start getting into this deficit very, very early, which you might not want to do this early in the game. But this is a tough pill to swallow, because at this point, this 3 gets you 1 momentum token, and your turn's over. That's all you do. But that's where the fun in this game comes. You get a bad dice roll, and all of a sudden, you've got a lot of questions to ask yourself. How far do you want to push this? How much do you want to risk? I'm going to spend another 1 to do a reroll. How far do you want to go with your rerolls? Is it really that important for you to do that? You've already got to pick your battles if and when you want to do those kind of things. And then, you would, if you've got a couple of momentum tokens, you can buy a card. And this one says play a turn during combat. So we're going to keep this one for combat. Reroll any 1s or 2s. At no cost this turn. So I'm going to keep that handy, and then later on I'm going to play it and re-roll my terrible rolls that I've got. As soon as you buy one, this gets refilled for the next player, so they might have a choice of 3 to do as well. But that's it. Mechanically speaking, this game is very simple. Once you get your morale down to a 5, you got to roll a d6. As soon as that happens, if you roll more than your current value, you break. So in that first test, if you roll a 6, you're just incredibly unlucky and you're done. As soon as you lose another one, 5 or a 6, you lose. Great. As soon as you get down here, 50-50, right? You're now done. If you have 3 formations break, you lose. Both sides, that's the case. If no one has automatic victory by the end, then the Americans win. So they're just trying to hang on and not take a lot of losses, is effectively what this game is. But that's it. It's such a simple game. It looks great. It's fun to play with. I enjoy a light game that has tactile pieces. It looks beautiful as well. This is just right up my alley. Everything's on these cards that you do. These tactics cards are very self-explanatory. And you roll a bunch of dice, you play a card. It's just quick and easy, and it plays in a very short period of time. But I thought there was some slightly more interesting tactical decisions over some other games of this light fare that I've played. So what we'll do is we'll kind of wrap it up here, get some final thoughts to you. So that's a look at the map for what it is. It looks nice, right?
Very nice
looking
game.
Pieces on a board.
Yeah.
We're not moving stuff around.
Yep.
But the real fun in this game for me was picking when to activate which formation and how to pay that activation cost.
Yeah.
And then seeing if I could trigger those bonus momentum cubes.
Yep.
To be able to get more to buy the cool tactics cards.
Because that happened when you played at the bottom of the activations. There's 1, 2, or 3 cubes, and if you played 3 of the same symbol, so if you played 3 2 cost momentum cards, you got an extra 2.
Yeah.
And that was really nice. You could one time you had like 8 or 9, so you were able to make some re-rolls and buy a card, and then you were out.
But it's, that if you're kind of going for that, it then again affects the order in which you're going to activate your units. So you got to think, do I kind of commit to that? And maybe not have such a pointed attack because I've got to use some different cards from different formations. Or do I say, screw it, and just like attack, and I'll take what momentum I can get, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And those are the neat choices in this game that give it it gives it some tactical kind of nice feel to it.
Yeah.
Without being hugely complex.
Overly complex, yeah.
And the cards are incredibly self-explanatory. There's a tableau of 3 tactics cards. So even if you're the newest gamer of all time, you've only got 3
to read and understand.
It's not that bad. You've got a hand of 3 cards. At most, you've got 3 activations that you can do.
Yeah.
So, you've got to look at 3 reference cards. Oh, do I attack here? Do I attack there? It's really, a really, really approachable and accessible game.
I would agree.
From all of those standpoints, which I really enjoy.
I think the one thing I would disagree that it is totally easy is on the formation cards themselves, there are a lot of, if this is the situation, then this, right? So if you control the mill, this formation, when they fire, get an extra die. Or vice versa. If they control it, I get -1 die. Or go ahead.
But at least it's right there on a card in front of you.
It's written on there. You just got to pay attention to it.
Yes,
there were a couple of times I oh crap, I could have done that. Like one of the advantages of Poor was I could spend 3 momentum cubes to guarantee myself a 6 without even counting or rolling a dice. So I could watch that. If I had 3 6s, I would use that ability so I could do 2 wounds to you. And I think those were things, by the end of the game, I had remembered that and it never happened. But that was my only issue. And not really an issue, but every one of them has something like this.
Yeah, mine's all +1 dice if you control the different farm and mill, things like that.
So it's just remembering that. I thought to myself, maybe it would have been good if they would have written that on the board. Right here, but it would have kind of ruined the aesthetic of the board. But you could have written +1 for the British if controlled. Or, I think those are things that could have been put on the board that would have eliminated the need to kind of peruse these every turn. But I thought that was also a cool thing that I had to kind of figure out how to use my guys.
Yes, but having it out on the board, at least on your cards, it's there.
It's there.
You can read it.
You don't have to dive in the rule book.
Yeah, and that's what makes it much easier than every other war game, right?
Yeah, agreed.
The exceptions aren't in the book.
Yeah,
the exceptions
it's
are here
true.
on my cards. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because so many games fall foul
You have to dive through the book. The other thing I really, really liked, and we didn't talk about, were the generals that you had. I had General Benedict Arnold and Horatio Gates as the Americans. You had Gentleman Johnny Burgoyne as the British, and they had a power and they had ability to like save a commander who was getting ready to be broken.
Yes.
So those were really cool. Benedict Arnold, it gave you +2 battle dice.
Yeah, that's nice.
On a combat. So I was sitting there thinking, when am I going to use him? And I kept saying, I'd rather use him to save myself rather than...
Yes, and if you can do a killing blow with your general, do it.
If I knew I only needed 1 or 2 hits, I'd be like, bam, I'm going to roll 8 dice now because I control the mill and this. And
for me, the power is in being able to save your formation and save yourself from losing more than anything, at least for the British, who have to go on the offensive in this one.
Agreed.
The British have to win, otherwise they lose. And I know that seems very glib, but...
They have to break 3 American formations or they lose.
Yes.
So if you only break 2 of mine...
You win.
I win. So I didn't have to take anything. I didn't have to hold anything. I didn't even have to break your formations. Now, if I break 3 of your formations...
I lose.
You lose immediately and the game's over. So that, it's interesting, but that in and of itself is also a part of being an introductory, low complexity war game because it's not... There's not 15 different victory conditions.
No.
So I liked this game. I thought this was a really solid addition to my Revolutionary War game playing. And I think people will find this to be a fun game.
And I want to say... I don't know if this is part of a new series.
It might be. Because the Siege of Quebec is a siege series.
That's their Great Sieges series.
Yeah.
I can't remember if this is or not.
Okay.
I want to say that
does it say that on the playwright anywhere?
If it's not, I'd like to see more of this style game.
Right.
Because I think this is a really easy way to get your kids into it. This is a really good resource for a classroom, for example.
Yeah, agreed.
The nice little telling of history without swamping anyone.
Yeah.
You can play this with almost anyone, and that's a credit to what it's trying to do. That's what this game is trying to be, and I think it succeeds in that.
And this is also a very pivotal battle in the history of the American Revolutionary War. The Battle of Saratoga, in essence, we were the victors. Now, it wasn't a crushing blow, but we kind of proved to the French, hey, we can fight.
Yes.
And we won here, and then we got them on our side. They started to assist and bring troops, and it was kind of the beginning of the end. And so it's a key battle. It's one that we celebrate as Americans as kind of the turning point of the American Revolutionary War.
And in the back of the 12-page rulebook, 3 of those pages are history.
Yeah.
So you do have a nice little piece of learning there as well.
We played a couple of games on this battle. We've played what was that one game? It's called Saratoga. But it was from Turning Point Simulations.
Yeah, it was part of the...
I enjoyed that game.
Yes.
It had some of the same elements, but totally, it was a hex encounter.
Yeah, that was...
So it was a totally different game. So I'm looking forward to adding this to my ranking of Revolutionary War games that we've played. I did a post this summer about that. Now we've played this one. I know we've got a couple of others that we still need to get to the table.
Yes.
But I might have a top 10 of those games after I get another 4 or 5 in. So,
and what's nice about this, again, it just fills a very different kind of niche to some of the other games that we've played as well.
Yeah, very different than a normal run-of-the-mill war game that we've typically played. This is a war game. It just has some interesting elements, different elements, but there's combat, and I like it. I enjoyed this.
Yes. So I had a great time playing this as well. You can play this with people who aren't crusty old historians, which is great. And
you could play it with a crusty historian. I'm sure they would still enjoy it.
That's the nice part. Yeah. Seriously, you can play this with almost anyone. It's a really, really nice looking product as well, which is always a bonus for me. Because I like
it feels very period. This is like a map that you would have rolled out on a commander's table.
And pushing
you'd be pushing these formations around saying, we got to take this flank. And, that's exactly what they were going for.
Yes. So,
well done.
Yes, great job. Nice production. Everyone should be getting this from the Kickstarter very soon. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. I've been Alexander.
And I'm Grant.